In this tutorial, we're going to talk about how to add text to your project and start learning about how the timeline works in VideoScribe. To add a text object to your project, click on the text icon on the menu bar at the top of the screen. Here, you can enter your text and change its font and color. When you click on the F icon, you'll see a window that has all of the fonts currently installed on your computer. Be careful about using fonts that show clipping in their previews. Having your G's or J's cut like that in your video will make your text hard to read and ruin the illusion of it being handwritten. So make sure all of your letters are intact when you're working on your project. Once you find a font that you want to use, click on it and you can choose what type of letters to import if the font you chose supports them. Basic characters and Latin extended are selected by default, so I just leave those on and click on the check mark. If you want to add other letter types later, you can delete the font from VideoScribe by clicking on the trash can icon next to its name and import it again with different settings. Once you have it imported, it will show up under the text area where you can easily switch between other fonts that you've imported into VideoScribe. Finally, you can change the font color by clicking on the multicolor icon here and choose the color that you want. Or if you know the color's hex code, you can type it in and the preview will update with your new color choice. When you're happy with the look, click on the checkmark icon and it will insert into your project. Now that you have your first element in your project, you can see that the text has been added to the timeline at the bottom. As I mentioned in the previous video, your main workflow should be to insert the elements, set the camera, and edit the draw time. Click on the text on the timeline and preview the effect by pressing on the play icon on the timeline to watch your project from that point. You'll notice right away during the preview that the text was zoomed in pretty close. That's the default zoom level, so let's change it to something more fitting. Rather than have the text zoom so close and centered, I want the text to be the title of this section. So I'll zoom out a bit by using the scroll wheel on my mouse or by clicking on the minus icon under the canvas and place the text at the top of my canvas area. Next, make sure that the text you just set is selected and click on the Set Camera button at the bottom right of the screen. Now when we preview the effect, you can see that the text stays in the position that we set it to. I don't like the zoom at end effect, so preview your project again and uncheck the zoom at end box at the bottom right of the screen while the preview is running. Once you have the camera position how you want it, it's time to change the draw time. You can edit the draw time by either using the plus and minus buttons on the object's timeline icon, or by clicking on the number itself and entering your own number in the pop-up box. If you want to change the font or color of the text you've already inserted, you can double-click on it on your canvas and click on the T icon at the bottom left of this text properties window. You can also get to this text properties window by selecting the text on the timeline and clicking on its document-looking icon in its timeline preview. As a recap, we inserted some text, changed the font, set the camera position, and set its draw time. If you ever want to see where the camera is focused when drawing a particular object, simply double-click on the object's preview on the timeline and the camera will reset to what it will look like in the final video. This is also a great way to keep the camera consistent if you want to add multiple text or objects without the camera moving. Just add your next text, resize it, and double-click on the previous text on the timeline to get its camera position. Then click on the new text and click on the Set Camera icon so that it has the exact same camera position as the first text. This is why I suggest that you lay out all of your objects on the screen first before adjusting the camera position and draw time. Once you know what your end result should look like, you can set the camera for multiple objects by holding the Control key on your keyboard. Click on each object that you want to have the same camera position, and press the Set Camera button. It's just a more efficient way to set up your project without having to constantly adjust things as you put in new images or text. So that was basically how to add text to your project. In the next video, we'll talk about the different ways to insert an image into your project. The basics still apply: add the image, set the camera, and set the draw time, but there are more options as to how you may want your image to appear in your project. We'll go over all of the important stuff in the next video, so stay tuned.